welcome to the Murfreesboro City School Board meeting. We will now ask Mr. Chad Fletcher to come forward for our Pledge of Allegiance. And while we're standing after the Pledge of Allegiance, I do ask that we take a moment of silence in memory of Sarah Malone, who passed away Saturday, April the 18th. Sarah taught our children for 42 years. Approximately 36 years of that was in the Murfreesboro City school system as both a classroom teacher and a title teacher at Bellwood and Black Fox Elementary. We'll now ask you to stand for our pledge in a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If I now could get a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We've had a motion and a second for the approval of our agenda. Ms. Mathis, Communications?
Yes.
Oh.
Are we going to vote on it or not?
All in favor? Sign of aye.
Aye.
All approved? All,
Sorry.
all in favor of the agenda is an aye?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm getting above myself.
Sorry.
I'm trying to get up and get from over here the same motion.
Actually, the first item is a very special guest with us tonight. Dr. Max Moss is a trustee and the treasurer of the City Schools Foundation. He also served as one of the MCs for our second Excellence in Education celebration that was held March 13th. And he's here tonight to update you on all the money that he has raised for us and to make a special introduction. So, Dr. Moss, we're so pleased to have you. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me. The foundation was founded really for two purposes. One was to support math and education for non-budgetary items for our Murfreesboro City schools, and the other one was for parity, to help the schools that can't quite make it with their fundraisers help their budget. And this year our money mostly comes from our Celebration, Excellence in Celebration Foundation dinner. This past year we raised $41,000 for Murfreesboro City schools at our last meeting. Yesterday we voted to give $58,000 in grants and parity back to our Murfreesboro City school teachers and principals. And the foundation celebration was a lot of work, it was a lot of fun. It took a lot of work from everyone, but no one worked harder than Barbara Scott. Without her, it wouldn't have been the event it was. And I want to thank you, and here's a certificate to say thank you, and really appreciate all the work.
And next, I know our chairperson is going to come to the podium because we, Murfreesboro City School students, took all the honors in the county-wide Read to Be Spelling Bee. First place was taken by Sayona Ghosh. She's a 6th grade student in Miss Christy Mall's class at the Discovery School at Reeves Rogers. Sayona is with us tonight. I want to pause and let her parents come and take some pictures, and you all would probably like to meet Mr. and Mrs. Ghosh.
And I happen to know that she's a lovely young lady because she's a friend of my daughter's. So she's a very lovely young
Sayona, would you tell us how many... I'm going to ask Sayona to tell us how many students you competed against.
There were 24 students in all.
And which word did you win on?
The word was boudoir, which is spelled B-O-U-D-O-I-R. And it is a French word.
Wow. And what does it mean? Thank you so much. You make us all look so good.
Thank you, Sayoni.
And next, the runner-up, Maury Fakui, is a 6th grade student in Mr. Donnelly Bragg's class at Irma Siegel Elementary. Maury, if you would come forward. And Ms. Fakui is here and would like to get a picture. Maury, what was the hardest word you spelled?
Well, the word I actually lost to was Kremlin, so I guess that's the hardest word.
Yeah. How long do you think you studied to win, or to win to become the runner-up?
A few weeks, I guess.
Okay.
Well done to both of these young
Both of you,
ladies.
you've done. You make us proud.
Ms. Mathis, if I
Yes.
could comment on that. I was one of the judges at the spelling bee, and I was certainly glad I had the proper spelling typed out for me in judging. It was, they were hard words, I'll tell you, that they were given, and I was really impressed with our young folks that they were from all of the schools from the city and county there, and these young ladies did a great job.
And thanks to their parents for their wonderful support. Thank you all again. And next we have two employees to recognize. I'm going to ask that Joe Golden and Randy Mealer come to the podium. Joe and Randy have been recognized for one of 10 top shops in the nation. Now, this is a national award. They were recognized in School Bus Fleet magazine, and I have with me their awards. I'm going to ask that they hold them, and I wanted to read from one of them. In the magazine itself, they say, in our annual series, we spotlight 10 superb school bus maintenance programs that keep district and contractor fleets throughout North America running smoothly. See how this year's operations have excelled through innovative practices and dedicated staff. And indeed, these two men are dedicated. And I'd like for you to hold this up too. And you all have given them a couple of gift certificates just to acknowledge the great job that they do for you every day, keeping our students safe. Thank you, Randy, and thank you, Joe. I'm going to ask that their supervisor, Larry Williford, stand and let us recognize you, Larry. Larry has extremely high standards, and you can thank him for the wonderful job he does working with them. Also, Deborah Savely needs to be acknowledged. She is our transportation supervisor, and she nominated them for this award. So again, I think you can see that everybody working together really makes a difference.
And I appreciate the opportunity to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of some of our unsung heroes, some of the folks that don't
Absolutely.
usually get the credit they deserve,
Yes,
the
thank you
acknowledgement
all.
they deserve anyway.
Definitely. Next item in front of tab 1, right behind your agenda, is a list of our Business Education Partnership mini grant recipients for the spring of 2009. We had 13 winners. Bellwood Bowden had 1, Lana Hurt. Case and Lane Academy's Felicia Jackson got an award for her students. Discovery School at Reeves Rogers, Stacy Burt and Sarah Fleming. Irma Siegel Elementary's Cindy Browning. Hobgood had 2 with Teresa Lambert and Melvin Prater. John Pittard Elementary had 1, Ashley Stone. Mitchell Nilsson Primary had 1 with Craig Nelius, and congratulations go to Scales Elementary with 4. Mary Kinney, Laurie Offit, and Jeanette Woods had 2. So we thank them for going above and beyond to do the extra for students by getting these awards. The awards go up to $500, and I think each of these was $500. And next, just a reminder that you will be throwing a party May the 19th for our retiring employees. This will be at 6 p.m. at the Stones River Country Club. And then our Teacher Appreciation Week will be May 3rd through 9. We always take something out to the school to thank teachers. We never can thank them enough, so it's usually just a token appreciation. And then National Teacher Day itself is celebrated on May 5th. And thanks to ENA provides a network for our school system. They donated gift cards totaling $500 for us to distribute to Murfreesboro City Schools families who were affected by tornadoes. And General Mills continues to be extremely generous. Another $15,000 our way. $5,000 went to Northfield to support an initiative called Bridging the Wellness Gap, and $10,000 went for a walking trail at Scales Elementary School. And to help celebrate that, Susan Cooper, who is the Commissioner of Health for the state of Tennessee, and Chris Hope, who is the Get Fit Tennessee spokesperson. Chris is a Titan pro football player. Both of these people came to Scales to help celebrate the kickoff of this grant, because they are putting in a walking trail with the money. And next, to congratulate Black Fox and the Discovery School. They're the two top Murfreesboro City schools in the Red Cross Blood Drive. And Andrea Kane, our Coordinated School Health Supervisor, has received a CPR Anytime grant. This will be $15,000 a year for the next 3 years. The grant will provide our sixth graders with CPR kits. We will train the sixth graders how to use them. They go home and train their parents. So that's very good. And the last item of communication is to congratulate Bellwood Bowden's preschool. They were recently recognized by Read to Succeed as providing the best city school involvement. So thank you.
Speaking
and,
of Read to Succeed, I've
Are you
gotten
reading the
it
book?
passed on, the book that we're all reading in our community. It's Animal Vegetable Miracle by Barbara Kingsolver.
That's good, too. That's a good
Yeah.
book.
Thank you, Ms. Mathis. Consent items. Can I get a motion?
I move we approve the consent items.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor? Sound of aye.
Aye.
All opposes. Action items, Ms. Mathis.
Yes, the first action item is to ask for your approval of our fiscal year 2010 general purpose, federal, cafeteria, and extended school program budgets. And you'll notice on your table that you had some new inserts. I apologize for bringing inserts every time to your meeting, but we have revised the budget in the amount of taking the land. I had put an amount in the budget for land, and that has been taken out. So to make it easy this time, I believe we have just provided the entire set of insertions for revenue and expenditures. And what else did they get? Is that it, Jolene? And yes, the highlight sheet behind the improvements had to change. So did you find all those on your table? Okay. A quick overview. I know you've already had 2 budget study sessions, and you've heard a lot of these things before, but just as a summary to get to tonight, since tonight is approval night, I want to again thank the team who worked on this budget, to Golena Bell for managing the project. She is our finance manager, and again, I thank her for her keen intellect, for providing information to us, and for her patience as we revise again and again and again. Thank you, Golena. And of course, Gary Anderson, our Director of Finance and Administration. Gary works so well with all the people who provide him with ideas for the budget. And particularly, I think Larry has left, but Larry Williford, the maintenance budget, Dan Boshears, our technology portion, our federal budgets, Priscilla Van Truys, Danielle Kaminsky, and Becky Sally, ESP, Crystal Rochon, are now Crystal Ferris, she's a newlywed. Cafeteria budgets, Janet Oakley and Joe Carroll Woodall. And our principals always submit items for the budget, and Lee Wilkerson, the personnel director, for our staffing standards and keeping us apprised of how many people we need to put in for personnel. So with that, if you would please look behind your new improvement, if you do have your improvement sheet in your budget, the new one. This is a status quo budget. We have kept our enrollment, the budget's always based on students, and we've kept our enrollment at exactly what our 6-month enrollment is, 6,890 students. We are showing an expenditure budget of $51,532,743, and this is an increase of only $27,811 over our current year. So the percent for this is 0.05%, so it's just absolutely a nominal increase. We have not asked for any new money from the city. And we are keeping our pupil-teacher ratios the same, 1 to 20. And we have step and degree changes in the budget of $445,000. A health insurance increase budgeted at $245,000. Workers' comp expected to increase by $90,000, and unemployment compensation at $5,000. I mention all those items because they are all employee-related, and those all add up to about $786,000 of new money that we put in the budget, yet we were able to not have an increase of more than not even 1%. Our science textbook adoption is about $700,000, that and replacement textbooks that we'll have. And then under revenue, just to quickly go to the last line there, we are having to balance the budget still by taking money from fund balance. We are taking $1,095,422 from fund balance to balance the budget. So I think you can get the picture there. Even though we've not increased the budget much, obviously we've had to increase steps and some of the employee items. Our ESP budget, we are not asking for a tuition increase, and that amount is $2.9 million. Our school nutrition budget in the amount of about $3.3 million. And then our federal project budgets of about $7.9 million, for a total of all budgets $65,140,200. So with that, Mrs. Wade, Chairperson Wade, I will stop and whatever direction you all want to go. I know you spent a number of hours reviewing this, so I don't want to have to go through every page. I mean, I will be glad to go through every page, but I don't want to bore you with that if that's not a direction you wish to take.
Ms. Duggan.
Last time we met, we were told that we have 6 schools that are moving to school-wide title. What money is being used to move them in that direction? Is it going to be the stimulus money, or is it other monies?
It would be title money.
But is it the stimulus title money that we're getting?
I see. It would be a combination.
Okay. So
Because they're already a title school, so some of that money would go. And to go school-wide title, Danielle may want to speak to this, but I don't anticipate that would make the expense much more. You're not really adding personnel. You're just redistributing the way they're used.
Yeah. I was just wondering, if we're using stimulus money, what position will that put us in 2 years when that money is gone?
It's not intended to do that, to make us go school-wide now.
Okay. So there won't be any loss of programs in 2 years because of no stimulus money. Okay. Another question I had, the information that we were given last time in the document, the front page said school administrators in the Murfreesboro City Schools, and it was the % of individualized education plans by school. How current is this information?
Mr. Wilkerson, would you come to the podium? He had actually developed that for your retreat, so that would not be current, as it's changing all the time, of course. I don't think you could ever get it current. But that was developed for retreat, and it would be how many months old?
School year. It was toward the end of the last school year.
Okay, so the percentages and things we were looking at were based on last school year.
That's correct.
Okay.
But I think that'd be very similar to what we would see this year. I don't think there'd be that much difference, because year to year, I think that would hold true this year as well as last.
Plus, our enrollment has not significantly increased, so that.
But even with some of our schools, if the number of IEPs only went up 5 or 6 children, it could change the percentage. If you have an enrollment of 341, if you had 10 additional students, it could change that percentage of children being served.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. My last question, or at least for now, would it be, I know you said that this year's budget is only $27,000 more, which is almost unbelievable that, you can have a school system and keep it that low, but that money, is that coming out of our reserves also, that $27,000? Because we're not getting any more from the city than we've gotten for, the past 5 years?
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, $27,000 would be part of the $1 million that we're taking from reserve.
Okay.
Yes.
Anyone else? Ms. Thompson?
I think when you mentioned that 27,000 increase, that was this coming year's budget over last year's
Budget to
So-
budget, right.
So
That's
as
correct.
far as what we're actually looking at, if I interpret this correctly, that our budget for the coming year compared to what we actually spent or think we will have spent this year is an increase of 1.97%. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Plus, we'll have salary increases that will be on top of that,
Well, steps and degree changes that identify.
are in that, but we also, if we have a percentage increase for salaries, that'll be on top of this.
Well, it would, but I mean, it's not, I don't have any percent increase in the budget at all.
I know that, but
Okay.
if we do have salary increases, it would be in addition to this percentage,
Right,
the 1.97%, correct?
it would.
Ms. Wade?
Dr. Bertram?
So we've not budgeted any money in case we negotiate with the teachers' union to give them an increase? I mean, going into this, have we told them there is no money for a raise?
Have we told them that? We're not to that article yet, so it has not been discussed at this point, but we do have steps and degree changes in the budget.
Well, now,
Any-
steps and degree change, I'm talking about raises for our teachers.
Okay.
So we were not, or we're not going to be able to find any raises, is what you're saying?
I don't think at this point, with the economy as it is and with our unpredictability of our revenue, that certainly I have not included one in here unless you all direct me to do that. I'll be glad to go back and do whatever you say.
I would like for us to look at some options, possibly with the stimulus money like we had talked about, and do maybe the bonus, the one-time bonus or something for our teachers. Again, I think they've negotiated for years, and I feel like they feel maybe they haven't come out as well as they should have in the past. So I think that's something that I would like for us to look at before we approve the budget, to make sure that we've looked in every possible area. And I was looking through individual programs and salaries, and I'm just wondering, was there any attempt to make or to reorganize certain programs that we feel like may not be as effective at certain schools and giving money to different places? Was there anything done
What would
by
you
your staff?
I don't know what you're suggesting. I'd have to know what you're talking about.
Well, then I want to jump back to another question I have. I know we have not budgeted for or prioritized in our budget for the assistant principals for schools who do not have an assistant. And I know we sat here last Tuesday and talked an hour and 15 minutes about that specific thing, and we were told as a board that no principal has come to you all with that request, and within 48 hours after that meeting, I'd already talked to 2 principals who said, yes, we've asked for that. We asked for it this year, and we asked for it every year. And when I was with this system for 6 years, I know I asked for it every single year, as did the other principals who were at the other schools. I know that for a fact. And it surprises me greatly that we spent so much time here last week and that information was not revealed to us when we point blank asked several times, do the principals want these positions? And I've talked to several of them, including retired principals who were in those positions over the last 10 years, and they too said they wanted those positions. And they've been put in the budget every year for the past 10 years and not hired. And then to find out we have programs, which balanced literacy is good, but when you have a balanced literacy teacher that is being paid out of the general fund at a school that really doesn't need that specific program, it bothers me that we're not looking at schools that need these assistant principals full-time as opposed to spending our money there. And so I would like us to do an analysis on how many positions are being paid from general funds, not our federal or title funds. This includes preschool and any other special program positions that we have. I know we had hired a science coordinator for the system and then hired that person full-time, I believe, this year. I'm not sure where those funds came from, but I would like to see at least some study on that before I can approve what we've been presented. And now I really don't know, it just creates so many more questions for me, because I think that the information was here last week when we were asking and we did not receive it. And I think that we may have left the meeting last week with a different opinion about assistant principals.
Well, I think I said at your last meeting, it's reflected in the minutes, that if I were to specifically ask a principal, as you did, if they wanted an assistant principal, they would say yes. But I don't recall any of them coming to me and telling me that they could not do their job without an assistant principal, and that was their highest priority.
Mr. Anderson, did any principals approach you and talk to you about this?
When we had our meeting to go over the potential spending of the stimulus money, it was one of the items that was mentioned as something that could be used for that. So it was in there. It was not saying, hey, I need this. It was saying that's one of the things we could do with the stimulus money.
And it was not listed as a priority item. It was under the
but
last
it was discussed and
brainstorming
brought
session.
up. And,
Yes, sir.
okay. Well, as a board member, I'd like for the principals to come to the board and let us ask them, because I really feel like we're not getting all of the information we need on some of our questions.
Mrs. Phillips?
I have to say that I've always found Miss Mathis to be a woman of absolute veracity. The second point I'd like to ask Ms. Mathis is what is our typical procedure when we are negotiating? Sometimes I know that City Hall has asked us to put raises in our budget, and sometimes they've asked us not to. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So a lot of that times that's out of our hands completely, is it not, Ms. Mathis?
It would be to the fact that we're trying to work with City Hall. They're our fiscal body. So, yes, when
Right.
they make suggestions to us, absolutely, we would follow their suggestion.
So I think that was an important point to make. A third thing, and it's something I was glad that Ms. Duggan brought up. And I think a lot of people, our folks at home watching, are not clear on what exactly a title school is. Could you?
A title school is a school that gets additional funding because of income level. They have to have met or exceeded the average percent free and reduced of the system. And so that's the way you become a title school, and then extra money comes from the government, federal government, to fund those extra teaching positions, the title positions as such.
Right. And lastly, could you give also for the folks at home, I know that folks are very interested in this, a brief interpretation of how the stimulus money affects Murfreesboro City Schools?
The stimulus money will have probably a pretty big effect on Murfreesboro City Schools. We will get nearly $2.8 million more dollars over the next 2 years. We could actually spend it all right now if we wanted to. We could spend it in 1 year if we wanted to. Our plan is to take about 2 years to spend it, because we believe that taking a little bit more time and spending it and using good judgment to spend it is in our best interest. The stimulus money is actually given to close the achievement gap from those children who are not achieving at as high a rate as some other children are. That is the intent of it. And so we have been meeting with the principals. We've received advice from you all. The greatest advice we've been given is do not spend it on recurring expenditures, because the money is not going to be there, so we're told, after the stimulus money goes away. We've gotten extra stimulus money in our Title I funds. The other stimulus money is for IDEA, which is is the special ed law. Of that IDEA money, we've been given $1,056,000 to spend pretty much as we wish in the system. We could actually spend it on pretty much anything, but we continue to be advised to not spend it on recurring expenditures.
And I had one last question, and this one's for Ms. Baker. Ms. Baker, could you please explain to the board again just how it works, our one employee and Oh, I guess the order one would take if one had an issue or complaint that one needed to make. How would that work?
An
We-
issue or complaint about what?
I'm just, we have one, the board has one employee, is that correct?
Yes, the board's one and only employee is the director.
Right.
And then the director is the one that has the authority to hire personnel for the school system.
And so there is a very clear and organized method for people within our Murfreesboro City Schools to communicate.
Yes, they're to communicate that information to the director.
To the director.
Any complaints to the director.
Any complaints or any things like that go to the director. Thank you.
Dr. Andrews is next.
Just had a couple of comments. Dr. Buttram had said there's no assistant principals in some of our schools, but obviously we have at least a half-time assistant principal in all of our schools. He also said again that it had been in the budget for the past 10 years. It's never reached a priority level to make it into the budget. It's never been in the budget before to increase assistant principals. We've had people talk about doing another study on it. We do have a director of schools who is managing the city school system, and I have no reason to believe that she doesn't have good judgment about who she needs helping her do a really good job. I'm just not interested in having our staff spend time on another study at this point. It takes time away from our goal, which is to help our children succeed. So, just to kind of clear up a couple of things again, just wanted to make those statements. Also, in the past, we've never put in raises for teachers in the budget. It's very difficult to put in raises when you're in negotiations, so we've never done that. Whether or not we're going to have any money to put in, to agree to pay them is another question, but that's not been a part of our budgeting process to be able to say, okay, we're going to give them this much, or that much. Kind of would make negotiations pretty difficult. Those were just the comments that I wanted to make at this point.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Campbell?
Dr. Buttram, I too had some conversations. I'm glad to know that people were contacted other than just me that's on this board. And Nancy, as far as a grievance procedure, there's no way that we're ever going to prevent teachers, custodians, cafeteria workers, principals from talking to people that are on the board or out in the community about concerns that they might have within their building. Whether or not that's a grievance or not, I don't know. But that's a thing that I guess everybody does. I'm sure that David has people at the bank that talk to him about a problem they see in another area. Mary may have the same thing at State Farm and whatever the case may be. So I don't hesitate to take calls. I don't hesitate to answer emails, because the people elected me to be on this board to do and answer their questions, so I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do. I too would like to see us look hard and heavy, and we've been doing this for some time, and I know that you have. If I'm not mistaken, Patrick McCarthy, that was one of the things that he was pushing for, was assistant principals. I think somebody had told me that anyway. But I'd like to see us continue to look at and to bring some closure to the assistant principals at the buildings where we have a lot of students who require an IEP and MT meetings. I use myself as an example at our last meeting pertaining to the number of IEPs and the length and all that. I've been there and I've done that, and I can understand where that is needed within a school. I know that Murfreesboro City I know that they have told us we have X number of dollars, and that's it. And if they tell us we're not going to get any more from them, okay. If I walk up and give you $1,000 and say, now you take it and you spend it, that's all you're going to get. Well, evidently they have told us this is how much we're going to get. And it's our job, I think, to determine how we're going to spend it and where the best areas to spend it would be. So I would like to see us continue to look, and this budget does not have to be presented and finalized tonight. There's nothing that says we have got to have it to Roger Haley by May the 1st. I don't think there's a state statute anywhere that says it's got to be. There are a lot of school boards that don't present their budgets to county commissions and governing bodies until May. You know, Rutherford County doesn't even approve the budget till July. So, you know, I don't want us to think that we're in a hurry-up mode and we've got to get it done quickly if we feel like we still need to discuss and fine-tune articles that are in the budget already.
Certainly, I'd like to, before we carry on, I'd like to thank the board for all their comments and things that we have to say. I do ask that we remember to address the question and not the person, because everybody's entitled to have their say. So we want to stay with that. If I don't agree with something Ms. Phillips said, I'll state the question and just address the question. And let's not get into, well, Mary Wade said, and I don't. Let's just stay with the question. And I think we'll get something resolved tonight. I do hope that when folks come to you, and there's nothing wrong with the public or the teachers. We ran for this position for the teachers also. They're voters. So when somebody comes to you, just remind them if they have a grievance or something they want to share and want to go further, be sure to tell them the process along with your good listening skills. Because I know it's hard not to listen. Listen, and then if they still want to go further, say, here's the chain of command, here's what you have to do. But by all means, be a good listener when they come to you with the problem, because when they come, you must have been the one they're comfortable with. So tell them what they need to do. We're going back to the budget, so I know there's some more conversation about the budget. Let's stay with the money. We've got good folks over here that can talk about that money. First thing I want to make sure, Ms. Mathis, I don't know when the budget is due, but we have City, Ms. Baker, Ms. Mathis is here. Has Mr. Haley set a deadline to when he would like to have this?
May 1.
May 1.
That's actually in the city code and charter.
See, I knew I had some folks that could answer that question for us. May the 1st is when they'd like to have it. We want to work with this tonight, still early, and still open for questions. So as many questions, I've heard some good ones come by, especially about the assistant principals. But Ms. Phillips had a question, and then we'll roll back down here to Dr. Bertram and Ms. Duggan.
Well, I just want to agree with your comment and Mr. Campbell's comment that we are here to listen. My concern is soliciting staff to bypass the chain of command. I do have concerns about that. Back to the budget, though, for me. Ms. Mathis, can you tell us a little bit about how any plans to use the stimulus money at this point?
If you want to turn to that section in your budget behind the federal and other funds, the first budget is on page 82, which is our Title I budget. And that $828,753 that you see there is all new money. And we had some ideas down there, and we're continuing to add some. In fact, one of the most recent ones, we've talked about adding Saturday academies and providing extra opportunities for children on Saturday through some of our money. But you'll notice some of the suggestions that we have there. Now, the title is pretty specific as to how it can be used. It's, and I'm going to have to trust our Director of Title, Danielle Kaminsky, to guide us in this direction, to make sure she is monitored regularly. We have a person from the state who comes and works with us. This is federal money through the state, and the state is obligated to make sure it is spent correctly. But there is a list of some of the ideas that we have come up with for the title portion of our stimulus money. Professional development, parent education activities, moving targeted assisted schools to the school-wide model, and I really am not sure why that would, Danielle, why would that be listed?
There is some money needed to get all of the staff highly qualified. That's the major.
Which would be one time only?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Pros.
Yes, and MBA.
And math coaches, curriculum development and writing stipend, extended learning for at-risk children, and maintaining our preschool services and initiatives are just some of the ideas. And one of the reasons we didn't put any money by these is because we do want to make sure that we're not tied down to anything specific until we've had a chance to develop and make sure that this is indeed the direction that we want to go as we continue to receive input from our principals and teachers. Then on page 94, this is new money for IDEA, and of that $1.8 million, you'll note at the very bottom, the last line, $1,056,000 can be used pretty much any way we want. Some of the ideas that we've come up for that, we've moved a lot of our technology budget out of the current budget into this, onto this page. Extended learning, teachers in EA, inclusion specialist, gifted specialist, a new bus. So those were just some of the ideas that we've come up with. Do you want to expand on this any, Gary, any additional? Gary met with our principals and did listen to the ideas that they had, and they brainstormed and threw about everything out there they could possibly think of as possible ways to spend the money.
When we met, we went over all the possible items that could be included, and this was basically a summary of what they thought would be the most important to use the IDEA funds. The other portion of it is that 50%, and that we're getting clarification on the 15% when it deals with the EIS money, the early intervening services. We want to make sure we're doing it right. So we still have the opportunity to spend some of that money in other areas, but we didn't want to come forward with a plan until we're finalized and sure we know exactly what we're doing with it.
Does that help?
Well, my question is, Ms. White, well, I have several questions, but the first one is, can we ask for an extension, Kelly, to the city for the May 1st, since it's just a charter requirement?
No, that's law. That is adopted by the General Assembly. It's a code. What happens is sometimes what we have to do, because oftentimes they don't have know what all the money is we'll be getting, they'll pass the budget, and then you come back and amend the budget.
Okay. So
But
we
you
do
need
have
to pass one to present to council by May 1. You can amend it after the fact.
You got another question?
Yes, several.
We've done it.
The $30,000 we spoke about for ESP, Ms. Mathis, that we're charging them to use the facilities upstairs.
Well, to use all of our school facilities, not just upstairs.
Well, wherever. I still really feel that we need to reimburse that money back into the ESP budget, if not all of it, at least $20,000 of it for them. I feel like it's inappropriate for us as a system to charge a part of our system this money when they end up with deficits like through the basketball program that we ask them to do. Then they end up with a deficit that they have to pay for. I would hope that we would want to give them at least $20,000 of that $30,000 back. On the IDEA money, again, I would like for us to look at the current programs that use IDEA and see if there are any employees or there's any money that we use out of the general fund that we can use out of IDEA. And I know there are positions all over, and I'd like for the board to receive at least a list of those positions for both the federal and the IDEA budgets, because I do think we could find a lot of money there if we were just creative enough to look at altering a few of our programs. And that's all I have for right now. I'd like to thank Mr. Campbell for his positive comments.
Ms. Duggan?
Yes, on page 1, with the science textbooks, is that going to be enough money to buy new science books for all students, K through 6?
It is. We've actually already received the amount. Do you remember the total amount on that? It will be, yes, for all students. Yes.
How much does the State Department actually allocate per child for a textbook these days?
I have no idea. The way they divide it all up into amounts, but when it comes in, it can be spent out any way you want. We have a little blue book. We can look it up if you'd like.
No, that's fine. I just know
Okay.
typically it's not nearly enough to have the textbook.
Right.
Another couple of questions. Looking on page 82, and we're looking at the parent education activities, and you said that there's a possibility of maybe some Saturday academies. I'd like to strongly recommend that those Saturday academies also include parenting sessions, and that may, as much as possible, it be mandated. I know you can't actually mandate, but it can be strongly encouraged that if your child's able to participate in this free, you need to come.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if any of this money, I know that Read to Succeed makes a huge positive impact on our community. And, of course, that's a nonprofit organization. Is there a possibility for even a small amount of money to be given to them because they constantly give back to our district?
I don't know. I'll check on that. Ms. Shaw called me the other day and asked me for some money, and I said I really didn't know how that would work. I would have to check and make sure that we could do that. I suggested that maybe some of the employees that apparently will lose their jobs because she's lost one of her grants, that probably there were employees that we could use in some of these. And so I'm not sure that was what she was looking for, but we definitely want to work with Read to Succeed, so we'll check and see if that is a possibility.
All right. And a meeting recently with Dr. Gary Nixon, who is the executive director of the state board, he made the comment that our stimulus money could possibly, not just ours, but across the state, could possibly be used to buy additional time with teachers and our students. And I found that rather interesting, but rather intriguing, in that with a new test next year, with the rigors going up significantly, that might be something that is put into the mix, that we look at making sure that teachers, I know there'll be lots of training for them, and has already been, but will continue to be, to help them interpret the new standards and move our students where they need to be. But we might keep that in mind as a possibility of actually buying more time with our teachers to make sure that they are, as knowledgeable as they can in this transition with the new test, new publisher, and new rigors.
I think that's a great idea.
Mrs. Mathis, I have a question, please, ma'am.
Yes.
You did say if we pass this budget, we could always come back. Can we come back and amend things that we approved tonight?
Sure, definitely. We just need to get a version to the council so they have some idea of what our budget will be.
So, board members, we have our own wish list, I'm pretty sure. I heard so many things come by. But if possible, I'd like to get a motion, since we can come back and amend some things that are in here, and that will be a part of the minutes that we can, for some of the items that we've had a lot of questions about, and there have been some excellent questions and suggestions to come through tonight. If at all possible.
How will we know that if we vote on this budget that those changes will be made and will be made appropriately and properly?
Well, it's like anything else. If we come back and make a change, you've got to vote on the change. Still got to be passed by a vote. If we come back and say, I'd like to amend it for Ms. Mathis to hire Mary Wade to do the parent teaching, well, that probably would not go over well, and I would not get it. But then I could get voted in. It's got to be a vote. We all come back, have discussion about any changes, you get to do that. And if it's some at the next board meeting, we still will vote. If it comes up and we're all in agreement to do certain things, we've already said that we will come back and visit it. Not say to get voted in, but we're going to revisit it. It's still, either way we go, it's got to come in for a vote.
I think that tonight, if there are things that people want to change, we need to talk about it. We can vote on it. I guess the place to start would be to have would you like a motion? I'll make a motion that we approve the budget as presented. If someone wants to second it, they can. And then if people want to make amendments or suggestions, then I guess, would that be the way that we could handle it?
I'll second the motion.
There's been a motion and a second. Questions?
Now, we're saying that we're going to approve the budget, then vote to, or talk about, and then vote to amend it tonight? Can we do that? If that's not on our agenda?
It could
The budget's on the agenda.
I know, but if we vote to approve it, it's approved.
Yes.
Then we're going to turn around and talk about items and vote to reapprove it?
You can vote, you can right now try to amend the budget before we vote on it. That's something you can do right now. If you want to amend the budget, you can move to make an amendment to it, and we can vote it up or down right now.
Ms. Wade, if we vote on it now, are we going to turn around and make changes, or are we going to come back later, like
I'd
you
rather
said?
us not, because it could get 15 changes into this budget tonight, and we'd be here till maybe 11 o'clock trying to amend back and forth. Why not? We've got the motion on the floor to approve it. Everybody's got an idea of what they'd like to see in it. It looks better when it's presented at a formal meeting where everybody, instead of us haphazardly springing at it tonight, let's approve it. Come back at the next meeting. If you have any questions you'd like to ask Mr. Wilkerson or Mr. Anderson, because I know some of the things that I've heard come across, and one of the last ones was something that Mrs. Duggan said. It's not on here, but I think a couple of questions could be asked about it. Why don't we not start amending this budget tonight, but approve it? Give Ms. Mathis a chance to get this set up by May 1st, because May 1st is next week. And then at our next board meeting, it's what?
Friday.
Friday. Sure is. That's all right. Right. Well, let's go ahead and approve this budget. Next board meeting, we can bring these amendments to it. You could amend at any time.
Okay, well, I want to make something clear, that if we approve the budget tonight, if we start talking about amending next time, I don't want us to be told as board members, we can't talk about that because we've approved the budget, and that would be trying to micromanage what they do with the money. But that is our job, to make sure that our money, the taxpayers' money, is being spent appropriately and properly. And I think we have a lot of questions about sometimes how that taxpayers' money is being spent. And if we don't address it now, as long as we know we can address it in the next meeting, but I don't want to be told the next meeting, no, we can't make any changes at that point.
No, we've already said we can make amendments.
Okay.
Ms. Baker is here, and also that was a question that I had for Ms. Mathis while we were going over this. I know there are some things that are out of the jurisdiction of policymakers. Ms. Baker's sitting right over there, and she does not hesitate to tell us at any time. This is what, and whoever's idea this was to bring the policy in, thank you. It'll be in here. If you have a question, I do ask that if you have a question that you think may get lengthy at the next meeting, any of the board members, go ahead and do your research and your homework on it before we get started on it, so we all have a general idea of what, you don't call and tell me, but already have it already have it in place so we can discuss it at the next meeting. But I've already asked Ms. Mathis, can we go back and amend some things? And as I said, it's going to take a vote. And some things may not get amended, but at least you can have discussion about it. You won't get it from me where, nope, we're not going to talk about it. No, I won't do that.
Well, I just want to make sure we're going to get the correct information. I feel like at this point, all the information we've been given is not really as correct as it could have been, and so it leaves a lot of questions. But if we have that opportunity to amend, then thank you.
It's on the floor for
I did move to pass the budget as it is, and I think that there are people who have suggestions of changes, and I'd just soon go ahead and hash it out and work on it now. I mean, it's going to take a long time whenever we do it. We might as well go ahead and work on those things tonight, because I really don't think the situation's going to change by next time, and it's still going to be another long discussion. We're going to talk about the same things we've already talked about tonight. So I'd like to go ahead and move forward, and that's my personal opinion. And I certainly see your point, but I kind of feel like, we've talked about it tonight, we've talked about some issues another couple of times, and if we bring it up again, we're going to make the same statements over again that have already been made tonight, because we're going to need to say them again, and I kind of feel like let's go ahead and deal with the issues that people are uncomfortable about, and, vote them up or down.
I need some more information on some of the issues, though.
I'm not sure what more information we need, so,
Well, a board member is entitled, if there's a question that they're not clear on, I'd rather them not vote on something that he's not clear about, and he said he had questions, and I trust that he has questions about it.
Thank you.
Mr. Campbell.
Dr. Andrews, you made a motion to approve the budget.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if your motion stands and we approve the budget as is, in order for us to make any changes, you would have to rescind on her motion. Am I right, Kelly?
Well, she can agree to amend her motion to include any of the changes or rescind her motion, and someone can make a new motion to adopt the budget as amended.
Okay.
And you can also vote it down and
Okay, just
amendments
give
to
me
it
a
that
minute,
way.
please. You're telling us that according to the city charter for Murfreesboro City Government, this budget has to be presented to the city manager by May the 1st.
Right, and it'll be presented to the city council at the first council meeting after May 1st.
Okay, so that's not a state statute, that is a
City
statute.
charter, which is adopted
Okay.
and passed by the General Assembly.
Okay. While I've got the floor, I want to go back to one thing, please, ma'am. When I said something about, I too was contacted, Dr. Buttram, you and I were not the only board members who were contacted. At least, that's what I was told. Now, every board member may not admit it, but we were not. I'll leave it at such.
Thank you.
We'll let hearsay alone for the time being. Now that we're back to the approval of the budget, do you hold to your motion and the second, or Dr. Andrews, or you?
That was
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. We've had a motion and a second. Ms. Ridley, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Duggan?
Yes.
Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Dr. Andrews?
Aye.
Dr. Buttram?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Wade?
Yes. Thank you, board members. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am.
Before we move on, because this is still about the budget.
Okay.
Since we have not gotten additional monies for 6 years from the city, if I'm accurate, and this year we had to dip into our fund balance for well over $1 million, $1,095,422, I think is the correct. What is the procedure for approaching the city council early, like just as soon as this is presented to them almost, and start talking about the need for additional money possibly? I know we don't know what our economy is going to look like a year from now, but at some point there's going to be no more money to take out the fund balance. So I don't know what that procedure would be, but I feel like there needs to begin to be some communication, maybe in a little bit different way than maybe we've needed to do in the past, because it's a
Well,
new day.
You can do it however you wish, but the typical procedure would be that you write a budget that would say that you need X number of dollars from the city to balance it. I mean, if you wanted to ask, instead of taking $1 million from fund balance, if you wanted to ask the city for that additional money, you could do that. But with the fund balance that we have, I doubt it would be granted. It might be.
Yeah. And I understand that, but I'm just thinking about in the future, because at some point, we can't continue to tip into the fund balance at that level. But it's my understanding that we've pretty much, even before a budget's submitted, that we've been told how much money we can have.
We just met with Mr. Haley on Monday, so we've not been told that in advance. I just wrote the budget this way. You all could have asked that we ask for more money by adding more expenditures to the budget, and therefore you say, well, I'd like for our source of revenue to be that we appeal to city council. That's a way that could have been done.
And I don't think that with everything considered that we should be asking for more money this year, but
Right.
I'm just, thinking about in the future, because every year we're going to have needs and greater needs if the school system continues to grow. And I have also been contacted by several people this week, unsolicited. They contacted me about issues with assistant principals, and so I think is
Did our
something
principals contact you?
Yes, I have spoken to some principals, but also to assistant principals, just sharing concerns. And I do try to go through the protocol of reminding them, have you spoken with your principal? Have they spoken with the people? Because I do believe in following protocol up the line. And in some cases they have, and in some cases they haven't.
Well, I'd like for also you all to know that some of the principals have called me in regards to your calls, and what they have said is that this was not their top priority. Their top priority is more help in the classroom. So I do remain confused on the issue because I'm not getting the same story that apparently you all are. And I apologize for that inconsistency because I know it's very confusing to you as it is to me. If that is the direction that you wish to go, I certainly am not going to deny it. You know that.
Well, I think the fact that it's come up for so long, for so many years, we really need to look at it. And some of the principals and people that I spoke to also did have a concern about speaking with a board member. One of them actually told me that they didn't. They were told not to talk to us.
Who would have told them that? I have never told anybody not to talk to a board member, and I want you to know that
Okay,
in
well,
public.
that's not what I've been told. So,
Well, it's always, and you never tell me who it is, so there's no way to know.
well, because they told me that they would fear retaliation, so I agreed to not mention their names.
We're going to go on.
Well, they're telling me it's not true, everybody in the audience, so I think that should be reflected.
We're going to go on with the board meeting, and
I want to hear this.
hold on.
I think that is,
Hold on for 1 second. Please, ma'am. Please, sirs. And the audience. I need some clarification, just for a second, from City Attorney.
Yes.
Rule of order. The conversation that's transpiring in and out, do you need to say anything to us, or does somebody need to be recognized? We were on the budget. I'd like to stay on the budget. We voted it in. We've got some issues about some positions that are on a list that we'd like to see handled, but I don't think this is the time for that right now. And I think out of just respect for the board and the listening audience, let's stay with the agenda. We passed it, and if we're going to start taking comments from the audience, that's something else. But is there something you need to say?
No, that is, your, as the chair, your prerogative, whether or not you want to open the meeting to take any comments. If there's someone you wanted to hear from, that's your prerogative, but you should stick with the agenda.
Board member, if it's the wishes of this board, we'll stay with the agenda and carry on with our meeting. There are some things that we do need, little housekeeping things that we do need to do, but this is not the time and place to do it. All right, Ms. Mathis, our next action item.
Actually, the next one is a formality that you do annually, and that's approving for us to apply for federal, this is No Child Left Behind, consolidated title applications 1 through 6. So I need your approval of that, please.
Second.
If there's been a motion and a second to approve, Ms. Ridley, call the roll.
Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Ms. Duggan?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Dr. Andrews?
Aye.
Dr. Buckram?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Wade?
Yes. Thank you so much. Reports and information, Ms. Mathis?
Yes, providing you tonight with an update on our homeless families, particularly those who became homeless as a result of the tornado. And Ms. Kaminsky, and Ms. Candy Clifford.
Good evening. We're excited to talk to you a little bit tonight, explain to you a little bit about our update on the McKinney-Vento families and families that have been recently displaced by the tornado. So I'm going to begin by speaking to you a little bit. I've done a little bit of a PowerPoint so that you all can kind of follow what I'm saying is involved in our process for McKinney-Vento and identification. The McKinney-Vento Homeless Education Assistance Act is authorized under the No Child Left Behind Act and ensures that educational continuity during a time of transition for these students and families is maintained, and that schools identify and enroll students who meet the definition of homeless. The McKinney-Vento Act defines homeless children and youth as individuals who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. The term homeless includes children and youth who are sharing the housing of other persons due to loss of housing, economic hardship, or a similar reason, and this is sometimes referred to as doubled up. Living in motels, hotels, trailer parks, or camping grounds due to lack of alternative adequate accommodations, living in emergency transitional shelters, abandoned hospitals, or awaiting foster care and placement. Unaccompanied youth or students who are not in the physical custody of a parent or guardian are also considered homeless if they meet the criteria. How do we get it right here in Murfreesboro City regarding our identification and enrollment of these students? We have 3 steps, basically, in our process. We identify and we refer students by flagging them using an enrollee screening form that we receive from all of our students annually at student registration, or should they register during the school year, they fill that out. Come in the middle of the year, they fill that out as well. We gather information through our school guidance counselors and community outreach coordinators, and we conduct visits with all of these families. And then step 3, we disseminate information to our families, informing them of help and support services available through the school system and other community organizations. Our numbers regarding McKinney-Vento students fluctuate throughout the school year, but we are asked to provide the state with numbers annually. And this year, we reported our numbers on March the 19th. That's when the window closed. And we identified 76 students and served them this year, 24 students who are no longer enrolled in our district but were identified during the course of the year. 52 of those students remain enrolled in our district, or what we call active. And of the 52 students who are currently active, 15 are in shelters, 29 are doubled up, 8 are living in hotel, motel situations, and 0 are living in cars or trailers. In the past, we have not received funding for these students, but due to stimulus funding this year, we are receiving $8,919.67. I'm not quite sure how the formula worked, but that's what we received. And that was based on our identification and service to the students from the previous year, and we served 80 students last year. So that's how that number came about. Some of the things we may spend this money, the stimulus money for our Title X homeless students, are on educational services for those students specifically, professional development, coordination of services, that would be programs, coordinating services provided by our schools with other agencies to expand and enhance their services, comprehensive services such as medical, dental, and other health services, transportation to help pay for transportation so the children don't have to continually continue to move around from one building in our district to another, receipt of school records, and school supplies. Now, the numbers I've just reported to you, of course, were reported to the state prior to April 10th, the date of the tornado. On April 10th, of course, our current information changed. We identified 30 students in the district who were displaced due to the tornado. We provided this information to the state, and they have provided us with a tornado relief grant award for $27,500, specifically for our families who were displaced. I'm going to ask Candy Clifford to discuss the outreach efforts of the team with you. But before I do that, I want to applaud the outreach team who worked tirelessly to make sure that every single one of our families was identified, and who worked tirelessly throughout the year to make sure that these students are served and have everything they need to have a wonderful education and then beyond. Candy Clifford, April Hall, Cheryl Harris, Ruth Gonzalez Hill, Michelle Hummel, Connie Middleton, Dina O'Neill, and Mickey Brooks and Trent Cheeves worked together as a team. And let me tell you, on that Monday morning following the tornado, I could not have been prouder of the group of people that I work with and how they came in and the job they did in getting help out to our families. So I really applaud their efforts. We also, as a team, want to thank Kim Snell in Rutherford County, who works with us all year long. She's mostly my email buddy, but she tells me if we have a family that's moving in who needs assistance and vice versa, I'll communicate with her in identifying these families and making sure they're served between the two school systems. I also want to give some acknowledgement to Ms. Mathis, who deserves a huge round of applause for working with the State Department and our local politicians in getting our TCAP window expanded and changed, which has been just an amazing thing for all of our students. And I'll just say I know that meant a tremendous amount to a lot of our families. So that was one of the first things that our principals went out into, some of the areas that were hardest hit, and these parents wanted to know if the children were going to have to take TCAP on Monday morning when they returned. So that, I think, provided a lot of psychological relief. So we really appreciate it. Candy, take it away.
All right.
My buddy.
Yes, well, thank you. I get to come back about every other year. I think I get invited back to speak to the board. It's always a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me tonight. I'd like to start with the tornado first and talk about those families because that is so recent. But on Good Friday, I said to my husband, we're going to have a lot of work to do on Monday. And indeed we did, because the tornado had hit many of our city school families. And on that morning, Danielle is so correct, we were really a team. The first thing we did was to call all of our schools. I was the one that made the call that morning, and I told them we need this information as quickly as possible. By 10 o'clock that morning, every school had reported its numbers in to us. I think that's phenomenal that a school system could do that. With that, the team began to call every family that was on that list and ask them what their immediate needs were. They reached every family by the end of that day and had talked to them personally just to see where they were at and what they needed. The next day, I came into central office, and a folder was given to me, and once again, I checked with these families, and this time, I let them know what we could give them. I must tell you that these families are the heroes of our school system. They really didn't want much. The major thing they wanted was books, bags for their children, and school supplies because they had been lost in the tornado. Every child that needed a book bag and school supplies were given one through our school system, our counselors, our community outreach, and family resource center. The other thing that they needed more than anything were Easter baskets, because the Easter baskets had been put in closets and they were gone. Well, ESP shares with me all their donations, so they had just received donations from Walmart of Easter baskets and bunny and Easter candy. So we were able to put Easter baskets together and take to these families. There were other small needs. There were a couple of field trips we paid for. There was a couple of ESP did some emergency care. We must thank transportation because they picked these children up at motels and got them to their schools. So what a wonderful, wonderful group of people that we have in our school system to do this. Individual schools, such as Northfield, had a spa day for the mothers, that they came in and they had spas and lotions, and they gave them decorating books to decorate their new houses that they were going to get pretty soon. We invited them over at Mitchell Nelson for families to come over if they wanted to, so we could just talk one-on-one, and several showed up that day. And the counselor from the Mitchell Nelsons had information about what to do if your child has been in a crisis, and we gave handouts that. And we had bottled water that day and cookies, and once again we talked more about the things that were needed. These families we formed a relationship with, and by Sunday, every need by the next Sunday had been met for the families that had been touched by the tornado. So I think that you can say we successfully met the needs of these families, and we were very proud to do that. It was a very humbling experience because as you met each of these families, there was a story to be told and they wanted to tell their stories. But their biggest concern is to make sure that their children were okay in school and their education continued as it did, and I think we accomplished that. So I think you need to really give a hand to our principals, our school counselors, and the people that got this job done. So it was wonderful. Our McKenty-Vento families, we treat the same as we did our tornado families, with much respect and confidentiality. The main concern when we get a McKenty-Vento child is to make sure that their education is not disrupted one moment while their family is going through a crisis. The thing about the McKenty-Vento families that you must know is when we are introduced to this, it becomes a relationship with the family. Every family comes with another story. And because of the economy the way it is now, many people have lost jobs because of just the downsizing of the economy. Had great jobs. Foreclosed houses we're going into now. These were families much like us that find themselves, quite frankly, in a homeless McKenty-Vento status now. We do simple things from maybe a child needs a book bag to maybe all they need is some extra ESP or something. But then we get into families that have no TennCare, that we need to do medical services for. Children come with no glasses sometime, that we must make sure they have glasses. So we work with this family through the whole year, and we form a relationship, and we see this family through. The results are good. Sometimes it amazes me that we have families living in shelters, but their children are making straight A's sometime, are doing beautifully in school because of the work of our principals, the work of our counselors, the work of central office and community outreach, what we do to help these families. They are heroes just as much as anything. I think to tell the tale of the relationships between these families, I've received 2 calls this week that I found very interesting. One was from one of the families that had been in the tornado. Just a simple question. She wanted a referral, but she remembered the name a week later or 2 weeks later after this, how long it's been after the tornado, and we talked a while on the phone. A McKenty-Vento family called me this week that was in Florida. Her husband had lost his job because of downsizing, moved to Murfreesboro, went back to Florida because he got his job back, and she was applying for a job in the school system in Florida, and she wanted to know if I would give her a letter of recommendation. These are the very best things that happen for our family. So I think that Danielle has given you the statistics. I've given you the soft side of these, but we meet the demands of these families every day. You can be assured that we're taking care of our McKenty-Vento families. Thank you.
Miss Clifford, I just thank you. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your commitment, your heart, and the enthusiasm that you bring to Murfreesboro City Schools. It's just always a joy to have you come and speak. Thank you.
I'll be back in a year or so, I guess.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Mathis, and the staff that you're working with. But I also want the principals and the audience at home to know there were board members that were really, really concerned and wanting to make sure that we were looking out for the principals, teachers, and the students when it came to displacement and testing. We can't send too much, but when there's a crisis, we have to bond together as a board. So I want to commend the board members who took the time to, when I'd see you or talk with you, tell me, making sure, and Mrs. Mathis kept us informed. I was very concerned because I did not know, but I certainly am appreciative to Mrs. Mathis making this board aware of the displacement and everything that was going on, but especially the testing. So thank you, Ms. Mathis, and thank you, board members. Ms. Mathis.
The next item is a quick personnel update for you. You'll notice on your agenda the list of those who've completed their 90 days, and then behind tab 2, as of April 20, the retirements, resignations, and of course we list our deceased Sarah Malone there. We will have more retirements for you later on. And then the monthly revenue and expenditure report behind tab 3, you will note that we are continuing to operate in the black, and we have $2,500,000 that of net income now. And I'm sure if you have any questions that Mr. Anderson or Ms. Bell will be glad to address your questions regarding our current state of our budget. We're actually doing quite well considering the economy.
Yeah,
Do you have a question?
Yes.
And Ms. Dr. Andrews?
So, Ms. Bell, we're operating $2,500,000 to the good right now? All right. When that money rolls over to our new budget, has that been accounted for in our budget? Or is that going to be $2,500,000 that we have that we didn't account for in the budget because we don't really know how much we end up rolling over?
Well, during January, probably through March, we received most of our revenue. So toward the end of the year, the expenditures and revenue will balance out again.
Okay, so
we
whatever
won't have
doesn't
that much
balance
money.
out, because we budgeted, we would have that excess?
Yes.
Okay, so it looks like we could possibly have a large excess at the end of this year, right?
Well, no, because we've received probably the bulk of our revenues now. The amount of revenue is real large in February and March. And also in May, we don't receive any state funds, and that's over $2 million a month. So.
Okay. All right, well, that'll be interesting to look at come June.
Dr. Andrews?
I was just looking at where we were with revenues compared to last year, and we're about 1.3% behind of where we were last year, and that just gives you, that may not sound like a lot, but that can end up being quite a bit of money. The good thing is that you've managed our expenditures very conservatively, so we're behind on expenditures about the same amount, so hopefully we'll turn out okay. And I think you've been very aware of approaching problems and have been spending our money very conservatively this year, and I appreciate that.
And I do want to acknowledge Mr. Anderson's going through the budget and looking at ways that we can save money on. He has picked at the budget item after item to make sure that if there was a way we could save money, that we could. And working with our maintenance director and all the people who do spend a lot of money, I think we have about done all we can. Some of the things we have no control over, of course, like utilities. So that has continued to escalate. Then your last report is the attendance report for our 7th month. We have 6,901 students, K through 6, and then another, actually pre-K, we include our special ed pre-K in that 6,901. And then our regular pre-K, we have 373 students there. So we're pretty much static. We actually went down one student this month from last month. Even with that, Black Fox gained 6 students in 1 month. So, but we had a school that lost 9 students, John Pittard. So lots of moving around, bouncing back and forth. So those are all of the reports for this month.
Thank you, Mrs. Mathis. Other business. Well, thank you so much. Yes, sir.
I personally would like to compliment Ms. Mathis on her composure and professionalism tonight in tonight's meeting and the way she's responded to a lot of board questions, and I think you've done an excellent job, and I'd like to commend you for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Ditto.
Seeing there is no other business, thank you so much. I do ask the board members if they would, before the next board meeting, if you would read board policy, school board accountability standards. It's a good little article for us to read every now and then. It tells us about our relationship to everything that applies to board members. Just read over it, so when our meeting starts, it's just a little something to remind us before a board meeting, our relationship to different items. Since there is nothing else, you got it? You can read it before you leave if you want to, but before the next meeting. Meeting is, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Meeting is adjourned. I was ready to go. I was ready to go. I forgot to get in a motion.
School board accountability standards.
Because I've already read it.
Let's just not have any
Take care.
sessions ever again, because obviously you're not going to worry about doing anything.
God